The views expressed in this video are my own. I ask everyone pick up a copy of the book and read it for themselves. What I like, others may not, and vice versa. Starship Troopers. If there was ever a movie that marked my childhood, that was it. So a few years ago, when I learned it was based on a book, it was inevitable that I would read that book. This is actually my second read-through, and going through it twice with a year in between has made some things stand out that didn't before. But before that, I'm running an art contest, a pinup art contest, because I know how much you artists like drawing lovely women. To enter, just do what you normally do, draw a pinup, and tag me on the social media in question, and include the hashtag BGPinup. Contest ends December 15th, and winners will be announced on December 20th. The 3 winners will each be commissioned for the promotional art for my next book. The commission will be $200, and details are in the linked video in the description. Back to Starship Troopers. If you've seen the movie, I'm sorry to say the book is not the same. Yes, there are some similarities, but they're not the same story. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it now. I mean that literally. Pause this video and go watch that wonderful movie. I'll be here when you return. So let's start with the story. Johnny Rico is the son of a wealthy CEO, or company owner, I'm not sure which. And he's about to graduate high school. In this future, the only way to vote and win the franchise is to complete a term of service. Something Johnny's best friend is eager to do. Johnny is tempted, but is forbidden to do so by his father, who offers him a trip to Mars, followed by the prospect of Harvard and a job at his company. The plan goes awry when Johnny goes with his friend to enlist, and sees a pretty girl from their class. The girl is enlisting too, and Johnny, being the teenage boy he is, decides he's going to enlist as well. And the rest is history. This isn't actually where the book begins, but I'm a stickler for chronological order. I'm going to leave the story here and do my thoughts first. This is because there's a lot to pull from this book. It feels very odd to say I like this book, mainly because it commits one of the sins that I've so recently condemned others for. This is 300 pages of world building and little story, which could come across as a bit hypocritical, but I welcome any book to surprise me. Starship Troopers is early science fiction. From what I understand of the genre at the time, it was all like this. Since this is the only book I've read from that time, barring Lord of the Rings, I may have to read some others to see if that's the case. I say this not to forgive the book for something I chastise others for, but something to consider after the fact. Starship Troopers is political. In a lot of ways, it's almost utopian, reflecting the ideals of the author. The Terran Federation came from the failings of the last government. This government was founded by veterans of the last Great War who imposed swift justice on the roiling chaos that followed the last war. The Terran Federation is a model of efficiency, looking for quick and effective solutions to every problem. The only way to vote or hold office is to complete a term of service. This isn't as easy as it is today. When Johnny Rico meets his recruiter, he's immediately and actively discouraged. The recruiter is missing limbs and tells Johnny they will accept him, but his service will be as hard as they can possibly make it. Then goes on to list all the horrible things that he could end up doing, like testing experimental life support equipment on Titan and many other things which could get him killed. He can list his preferences, but they will determine where they need him. This is peacetime, just so you know. During Johnny's medical examination for fitness, he is informed they can't turn anyone away. The examination is just to determine what he can do. The only way they can refuse him is if the psychological examination determines he's incapable of understanding the oath. If he had shown up blind and paralyzed, they would still find something for him to do during his service. Something dangerous, annoying, boring, or best of all three, most likely. With all his tests done, he swears his oath and is immediately put on 48-hour leave. This, he is informed, is their cooling off period. If he decides he doesn't want to join anymore, all he has to do is not show up. They won't even come get him. The only thing that will be changed is that he will be barred from ever enlisting again. Volunteerism is a recurring theme throughout the book. Soldiers are free to leave at almost any time, short of in the middle of a military action, and a few other times. The army is so voluntary, they don't even waste time and resources looking for deserters. They just mark them as fugitives and bar them from society until they turn themselves in. Then they get their 50 lashes and are sent back to society. This carries over into civilian life to an extent. I don't believe I saw one mention of prisons. Civilians can be flogged for their offenses. It's also a public flogging. Just imagine going out on a slow Saturday to watch the local shoplifter get his beating and then maybe go for a light dinner. The only punishment outside of the beatings is work and death. A rather stark escalation: work, beatings, and death. I have mixed feelings about this method of governance. It feels like a civilized martial law. The people seem family-oriented in both action and thought, often talking about their legacy and their family's legacy. This is the type of society that will flog the father for the sins of the underage son. Accountability is also a major theme. Corporal punishment is a big part of our history. Hell, it's a big part of the animal kingdom and animals that stick to their young and don't eat them. When I was younger, I would have thought such a punishment administered officially would be barbaric. I'm of a slightly different opinion after the last half-decade. I've heard it said that this book represents a fascist utopian vision. This is usually by people who don't know what fascist means. This is closer to a libertarian military state, as weird as that sentence is to say. The government is fairly small and stays out of the day-to-day lives of the citizens. Mostly, the government enforces law and defends the Federation territory. Imagine such a streamlined thing. Ugh. A fascist state is closer to a planned economy for a military state. While they will allow individuals to own factories, that is only if they provide for the state, and even then, it's subject to the state's needs. Could such a government exist? I believe so. While I think it has a danger of skewing towards veterans and servicemen, there are some things that keep it in check. The difficulty of the training, the fact that it's every citizen's right to enlist, and it's only those who've completed a term of service that can hold power, be a politician, or vote. I believe all these things together would have a chilling effect on power grabs. It feels like the too tired to be evil argument that was used in prisons back in the 1920s. But I believe the system could work. Would it be a good system? I can't say. A system is only as good as the people in it, and no laws, regulations, or ideology will keep the corrupt in check forever. The book feels very proper and terse, as if it was written by a scholarly soldier. I don't know very much about the author, so he may have been. It also may be a product of its time, and I imagine people today may have some trouble with it. Everyone in the book is very proper and forward-thinking, most of them at least. Granted, this is a book about a military man and his journey to officership as they face alien opponents. That being said, there's not much action in the book. There's a scene of Johnny taking part in the raid at the beginning, and a confrontation with the bugs at the end. But even these don't have the usual action feel. It's more like we're reading the statement of a soldier who was there. So let's get into my likes. I really enjoy the world building. The Terran Federation sounds like a nice place to live, but I'd probably find it a bit uptight. We live in a very individualistic society, and the Terran Federation has more of a we aspect to it than most modern people would be comfortable with. I also like the fact that no one is just stupid and/or evil. It feels weird to list this, but I find it becoming a recurring theme in modern books for at least one character to be stupid to the point of self-destruction or pointlessly evil. I believe there were a few jokes about Johnny's grades and lack of ambition at the beginning, but he still comes off as smarter than many people I've met. There are a few people in the book who do unwise things, but it feels more from ignorance than stupidity. I also really like the idea of the Canine Corps, which, if I remember correctly, is basically a scout formation with genetically enhanced dogs. They're bonded to their master in a way that the death of one is life-ending for the dog and nearly so for the man. There's a really cool story idea in here if I ever get the time. I also like the tone of the book. It's almost soothing. Nothing feels rushed, and you don't get the sense of things being out of control. It's something you'd read laying on the couch when there's 2 feet of snow on the road and you're just thankful to be warm. So let's move on to my dislikes. there's a lot of distraction from the main story. We spend a bit too much time on the technology and the logistics and Johnny's memories and feelings. This isn't a nice linear story. You don't feel like you're watching the world through Johnny's eyes. It's more like you're reading Johnny's diary. I had to backtrack more than once because I forgot what was supposed to be going on because we got lost in a tangent. Most of the characters outside of Johnny feel very similar. Even when you know who they all feel like the same guy. There are a few exceptions, but every officer Johnny talks to may as well have no name at all because they all feel like the same guy. Maybe that has more to do with them all being military men, but I don't think so. There's no other constant presence than Johnny. This may be common with military service, especially with that of the Terran Federation, where you go where you're needed. Story-wise, it would have been nice to have another named character stick around for a while. Someone for the main character to have some non-stiff interplay with. So is this book worth reading today? I'd have to say yes. It's nice to read a story about a spacefaring civilization that isn't dystopian, but with defined factions based on species. It's not a grab bag of different races like Star Wars. It doesn't have the zealotry of 40K. Things are advancing, and it gives good ideas for what a science fiction universe can be. It's not for the greater good. It's for the greater good of humanity. Good luck, everyone.